Hello friends, I'm Shibid. Thank you for coming back to see me and my journal. I have a quick-ish flip through for you today of a vintage lady with sewing and kind of Victorian era thrown in. This is what the lady that's ordered it has requested. So the cover is this beautiful painting by William Henry Margetson, and I've used some burlap and muslin, and I've kind of indented this portrait into a second layer of cardstock with this calico here and some fabric here. There's a pocket on the back with some silk ribbon on a yarn bobbin, some mother of pearl buttons. This is the little graphic from the Graphics Fairy, journaling card, and some little vintage labelling. On the side I've done a charm. Just see if I can get this in frame to show you. Let's see where we are. So there's a little loop of spare buttons here. This is where she keeps her spare buttons. There's lots of little beads. She wanted soft pastel colours. Little wooden bobbin there. There's an antique. Let's have a look. Sewing machine charm. There we are. And some silk ribbons. This is all removable if you want to remove it, if it interferes with your writing. I did actually get the impression that this lady wasn't majorly, not a massive journaler. So I have done less pages in this book. There are less pages, but there is, I've kind of doubled up on the decoration of the pages rather than leaving blank spaces for journaling. I've kind of filled the paper more with the sort of things that I usually do. So I kind of got the impression that she wanted to kind of play with her pictures and cards and things. So there's more of that kind of thing in. So let's go to the inside. As usual, I'm having a lot of technical difficulties today. This is another attempt at this video, so I am going to rush a little bit because with these great big chunky journals they're taking half an hour of filming, and then you get to the end and it cuts you off 2 minutes before the end. So I'm trying not to sound annoyed with everyone, not with everyone but for everyone, you know what I mean. This is the full image of the cover picture. I just felt it was a little bit small on the face to be a focus on the front of the book, so I've just enlarged this section. So this is another painting by the same artist. With the journaling cards, I have backed them all with extra paper to make them stronger and stitch around a lot of them as well. I've done a little sleeve like this for the personal info card, and some collaging here with the beautiful fabric samples that Nazi has sent me. I've just snipped a few little pieces here, and I've included some swatches throughout the book just to go with the needleworking theme a bit more. I've chosen Romeo and Juliet because she wanted a soft romantic theme. Some journaling cards from Tsunami Rose. I'm going to try and skip through a bit quicker and just put all the credits in the description box rather than trying to get my brain in gear and remembering everyone's names. So this page came up nice. You might have seen that on the Instagram already. I've just used some tea-dyed paper and made sure I didn't glue all the way around the edges, just so that you've got the little loose old curling up paper, and just added some random bits of embroidery, a little bit of watercolouring here on the front, some more tiny flowers, and just postmarked over some old stamps that I stuck on there, and a wax seal too. Let me see if I'm in frame. Okay. I tried out a new idea because of the idea that I thought she wouldn't do a lot of writing. What I thought was just to use these photos and back them with paper if she wanted writing space. So you can use that. You can use the space behind. So these just slot into the little, what are these called, vintage photo corners. And I've done 5 signatures in the book, and for each signature I've done one of these little photo mountings. So there's 5 of these. So that gives you an extra space if you want it, but then if you're not doing a lot of writing, then your book isn't looking blank and empty. So some sewing ephemera here that you can write inside. This picture is from this little, you've seen this before if you've seen my videos, because it's one of my favourite images, book cover. So she mentioned that she liked this one pamphlet from another book that she'd seen, so I've used this because she wanted children as well. I've just put some blank graph paper, and what I've done this time is just use some of the images that are actually from the book. So this is supposed to be Hamlet and Ophelia. Really pretty paintings. I've got a little piece of fabric, like a theatre ticket here, to go and see them maybe, and some measuring tape in case you go to the theatre and you need to measure something. There's a mother of pearl button. These lovely butterfly kind of vintage roses and things. These are from the Old Design Shop. And again here on this page there's one of these removable photos, and you could even use the, sorry I've got some ink on my hand, you could use the space for, you know, a tuck spot. This photo is interesting. It's like from a theatre company where they used to print a contact sheet like this and then choose the print that they thought was going to look good and use that one to blow up, because of course it was time consuming and expensive to develop the photos. So here's a Shakespeare quote. Here's one of these beautiful butterflies. I've strengthened this so that you can write on the back. So flip here. This is a fold out with a poem. How can I compare thee to a summer's day? Something like that. I've forgotten the opening line. And then here is some scraps and sewing little bits and pieces, some embroidery floss with its packaging just sewn. There is a lot of sewing in this book. I've left a lot of the ends in, as you can see. And I found this nice fabric swatch chart. So this is printed, and then what I've done is just stuck a couple of little swatches on the paper and just put these gold pins, which can be removed, the pins if they're interfering. This little needle packet is from, it's like a little envelope that opens. That's from somewhere I've forgotten, but I will write it down. And I've just scribbled a little order that relates to the fabric swatches here. It's a little scrap from a vintage snap fastener. Lots of bits and pieces in here, some adverts. This is a tag with sewing machine lines on it. This is inspired by Angie Bunner in her beautiful, beautiful books that I'm sure you've all seen before. And here is a poem that goes all the way down here in 7 little verses. So I was just playing and thought I'd try something different there, which it came out quite nice. And so that's the single one that I usually include, one of these little tags, so there's that one in there too. That just slides out. Here's a little collage with some vintage button scrap, and I found this in a needlework book, and I think I need to read this to you. It says, "Do you think they'll spot we're dressed alike? Smartly hatted and gloved, mother and daughter go out to tea in their twin knitted suits. Notice that mother shows off her soft frill blouse, while daughter takes full advantage of the trim tailored line of the neck." I just thought that was hilarious. So I really think I need to do that with somebody. So that's slotted in there. Here's a quote from Mr. Bennett, and some more bits and pieces, some collaging on this tuck space with burlap and silk and lace. I pressed these flowers earlier this year, some little forget-me-nots, and that came out nice. I've put these in tracing paper, and this is another little idea that I tried out this time, stitching with different coloured threads. So I've gone around 4 times in 4 different colours and just tried to coordinate with whatever is in the tracing paper here, and I think it looks really pretty, the result. So of course you can see behind the tracing paper. Some cards there. Some more advertisements. There's a card here with some vintage paper and the opening line of Pride and Prejudice, which I think is the best opening line ever. Magnet here. So here's another of those photos that you can get behind for more space. I've done a lot of stitching around to frame some of the pages. Tracing paper with a stamp. I've done a pocket here with this beautiful first editions paper pack. I've used a few of these in this book. It's called The Promise, and they have some really beautiful effects on here. Some more scraps. That's a little needle packet again. So there's 1 pocket here and 2 here for little baby tags, and some dyed lace here with a gold button. This is my crazy Victorian page. Down here is the Brighton Pavilion. So they used to go to the seaside to bathe and take in the sea air. And I think of Victorians, I always think of explorers. When they weren't all dying of cholera, or the ones that didn't die of cholera, I think that they were all great explorers. So I've included some kind of exotic birds and botanical art and things like that. This bird, I always thought this was a exotic bird, but I recently found out it wasn't, although he looks like he should be there, a crossbill. And some little plants and specimens. Here's a little envelope to put your own specimen in. Here's a pear, I'm not quite sure why. Kind of lent a colour balance, I think. I think that Victorians ate pears, strangely enough. So that's why that's there. And again, I've gone around this page with the different coloured threads just to kind of coordinate pink and lilac and blue around here. This beautiful photo, I think she's an actress. So again, I've mounted this on the Linen Look paper. And I was having a look at her amazing dress and thinking that if I dressed like that, I probably would waft and float about like one of these Victorian ladies and just be ethereal all the time. Too ethereal to do the housework. I think that might have become my new ambition. I'm too ethereal to do the housework today. So that's that. I've put a magnet on this belly band so it just keeps things secure in there. This is a page from that beautiful old ledger, and it has all these strange things like pony and cart listing and carriage and stationery and telegrams, mash, grits and sundries. I don't know what grits and sundries are. Oil for incubators and things like that. It's really beautiful paper. On this side is another little needle packet and a vintage page from a needlework book. This is a little fabric envelope pouch thingy with tracing paper. Envelope. Another lovely vintage image. This is the Children's Shakespeare again, and I've used this little fabric scrap because it says fairy story on it. There's a little bronze charm on here of a, it says silk cord on it. It's a little yarn bobbin with thread wound round. It's really pretty. So I've made a tuck with this old book page and stitched round. And here's another flower that I've pressed this year from the woods near my house. And I've made that into a tall library pocket on this vintage needlework book. This is Tim Holt's vellum made into a pocket. This is that beautiful London vintage book that I've mentioned before. It has this gorgeous velvety paper. I've made an envelope out of it and stitched all round. And then, oh, this is Jane's letter to Lizzie when she was stuck at Netherfield Hall in the rain. And some more scraps. It's a vintage tray cloth made into a pocket. Shakespeare quote, this is typed on calico, and this is a French dictionary. Some more scraps in here. Oh, and I think you guys will like this idea. This is 2 sheets of jam paper, you know, the little wax discs that you get to put on your jam pots, and this little flower encased inside. I've stitched round, and I crinkled the paper before ironing it. Just put it on a low iron and you get this beautiful frosted glass effect. It's really pretty. I have been experimenting with different kinds. You can get different thicknesses of wax paper and they kind of all react a bit differently, but I thought that looked so pretty with the vintage poem from a book page there. Here is more exotic kind of, reminds me of Victorian times, these exotic birds. And this is a collectible album page from these vintage tea cards. So another poem. And this section I've done some pockets. There's one pocket, well, 2 pockets here, and then another little, kind of like a secret pocket if you take the things out and have a look, where I've matched the patterns, so 2 layers. So that makes another one there. And some little scraps and button cards there. This was a nice idea. I got these from the Old Design Shop, so just to include some more little children, some really pretty images. And on the back, sorry, I was just hesitating because now I'm wondering if this was from there. I will link it below anyway, but the back is definitely from the Old Design Shop. And what I've done is just sized these postcard backs the same as the fronts, of course, and stuck them. And I think it gives a really nice effect, like these old postcards. And in here, in this tracing paper pocket, I've included another one so that you can see the postcard on the back. So I thought that looked nice. And down here there's machine sewing lines with a doily. Excuse me. Some more cards in here. This is actually my grandmother, this photo with her sister, and so I've included a copy. And so you can see, you can write on this paper with a white pen, looks quite cool. And on this side, this really beautiful image of a dancing troupe that I found. I thought it was unusual because it has this very old feel, and yet the faces are all kind of happy and cheerful. They're not dour like they often are on these old photographs, so that really appealed to me. I've got a little wax seal here with a bit of collaging too. And here I've done this fold out with a magnet and this lovely metal clasp, some more of Nazi's beautiful fabrics, and this is just to protect that there's a real specimen in here that I've attached to this French dictionary tag. So it is quite delicate, but because it's in here, it's nice and protected. On the back here, some more scraps, some sewing ephemera, some silk ribbon on these book pages. I've put one of these little cross-stitch tags. I've put this grand fellow all dressed up, ready to go somewhere. Look at that, going out on his date. This is a real piece of vintage, well, not a piece, it is a vintage receipt. So beautiful, this writing. And again, this gorgeous velvet paper made into a file folder. This is a picture of Islington, which is, I used to live near here when I was growing up, so it seemed like a nice page to include. And then in here some scraps of vintage tea card, some bits and pieces. So that goes in the back. I'll just put those here for now, and I can show you the charms on the side before my time runs out. So we have some pretty little beads, little cluster here, pearl. This is a antique clothes hanger, a grey pearl. This tiny little scissors is so sweet, little stalk scissors for needle pointing, and a glass bead with rosebud. Some crystal type beads, and another rose, and this I've made with a pressed flower on one side and a little butterfly image on the other side. So I think that's everything. Thank you so much for all your support and kindness and lovely words. I really appreciate it very much from all of you. Thank you, and I'll see you soon. Bye.